Hey, Bulls and Bears. It's Thursday, June 10th, 2021. Thank you for being here. We've got a few important things to talk about. Homeowner net worth is up by a couple $1 trillion year over year. I'm going to talk about why that really doesn't mean a lot. It could mean something if you use it in the right way, but we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But we're also just going to lay out what we should be careful about here as this economy continues to just get weirder, crazier and crazier, more bubblicious, more rising prices in the markets. The housing markets, more support is coming out for that. We're going to talk about that here in a few minutes as well. But before we get into the news, just keep in mind, bubbles inflate until they meet the pin. What is going to be the pin? I still think it's going to be some sort of event that comes out of nowhere that most people don't expect. But until that pin pops out of somewhere, many people say it's going to be a cyber attack or some sort of freeze up in the credit system. But until that pin comes out, the bubble will continue to inflate because that's all that the money printers know how to do. Inflate. In this case, send out stimulus checks and hoping that that's going to stimulate the economy. Now, it does stimulate spending. But the problem is, unless you have production and manufacturing to meet the needs of all the new demand for all the new spending, then you're going to just see rising prices. And that's what we're going to continue to see, again, until that pin comes out to pop this bubble. Let's start right here. This is the markets here. The Dow Jones up slightly today, and most major indexes were up. But take a look at what happened today and then a more longer-term chart here on the Dow Jones. And this is Thursday, June 10th. Big surge out of the open there at open 34,676, but then the market dropped and was unable to regain that what they received at the open, and it's actually green for the day but only just barely 19 points. So are we starting to see a topping pattern? We'll have to see. But let's go ahead and take a look at a 1-year chart here. We see this pattern right here. It's kind of leveling off. We did see the high back on May 3rd, and we closed at 34,777. We did not surpass that high, 34,756 on May 31st, but since then it's been down. So is this a topping pattern? Are the markets starting to realize that this inflation situation is not temporary, that it's not going away? And there's a lot of uneasiness out there. When you look at the big investors, the hedge fund managers, even CEOs, a lot of them are expressing concerns about these rising prices. But see, I don't think the mega corporations should be so concerned. It's going to be mostly the small businesses that are going to have the difficult times. And the Fed can just print out more money and send it out, and people go out and spend that money at the mega corporations that are becoming more and more dominant as we continue to go along here, as more smaller businesses continue to fail. But let's take a look at a longer term chart here, Dow Jones, and look at this huge surge to the right here. This is the same pattern, almost vertical, as we see in the money supply, as we see in used car prices. Even incomes sort of looks like this vertical pattern right here when you look at all the stimulus checks, how it affected incomes. And this is the biggest surge that we've seen here. And this goes back to the early 90s. So in about 30 years, we've never seen such a rapid run-up, such a big run-up in the stock market, just looking at the Dow Jones. So something to keep an eye out for. I think some big things are going to be happening here in the next few months. Look at what we predicted at the end of last year. We said the next 6 months is going to be pretty chaotic. And what are we seeing? We're seeing the beginnings of hyperinflation. We're seeing prices increase so fast that most people are really surprised, and a lot of people are really kicking themselves that they didn't buy, for example, a car last year. When they look at it this year, cars are up several $1,000s just year over year. So this rising price environment is really catching a lot of people by surprise. But if you've been on this channel, you've been expecting it and you've been preparing for this, right? Also, food prices continuing to skyrocket. I've got a bunch of canned food. I'm glad I bought it. Who knows what's going to happen with the food supply? Some crazy things could also happen there. Farmers are having a very tough time. If we see more farm bankruptcies this year, which I think we will, Food's just going to continue to go higher. All right, now speaking of food, let's talk about this. This is something that really surprised me. In America, we are fully capable of growing apples. We have a climate in many states like Washington and Michigan. A lot of apples are being grown. But look at this. 60% of U.S. apple juice comes from China. Why don't we have more apples grown here in the United States? Why China? Well, that's because we have people now that have been pushed into office jobs, more people sitting at desks, looking at computer monitors all day and talking on phones versus actually producing anything. And sure, they produce services. They work in the service industry, most people actually. But what about production? What about growing food? What about manufacturing? Right? We've become a nation where people mostly sit in offices, type up stuff on computers, but we're not growing anything. 60% of apple juice now from China. How pitiful is that? Right? I think they should actually pass a law where everybody has to grow some sort of food. That would be something good for humanity. Everybody has to grow some sort of food. And if that did happen, you would find the cost of food dropping real quick. And you would also see a lot of neighbors that begin to interact with each other. Okay, hey, this guy down here is growing cucumbers. This guy over here, he grows a lot of green beans. Let's go trade. Let's go take what we're growing to this person over here. And it becomes a community with people sharing and bartering instead of just sitting back in an office somewhere trying to make fiat digits on a screen. Okay, something we always have to keep in the back of our minds is the system is designed to make us non-producers and instead has turned us into consumers, people that consume, but a lot of people are not really producing any goods or products. In this case, food. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad what this country has become. And yet we have people traveling long distances to come here, even though we have to import, in this case, a lot of our food. And look at apple juice. And look at this Wall Street Journal article. Fish caught in the U.S., processed in China. So we catch them here in the U.S., a lot of them off the coast of Alaska. They're sent to China for processing, then shipped back to the U.S. to be consumed via canned goods. Right? How pitiful is that? We can't even process our own fish here in the United States. All right, now this is a bit of an older article, but this is still happening. We really haven't brought too many manufacturing jobs here to the United States. Another sad fact. Global semiconductor shortage. We used to manufacture a lot more chips and semiconductors in the U.S. than we do now. Right now, we're about 12% of the global share, and it used to be a lot more than that. It used to be closer to 40%. It was actually 37% in 1990. So another area where the U.S. is dropping off and losing to the competition. Why is that? Because again, most people are herded into office jobs and service sector and leisure and hospitality jobs. And the companies that outsource are making a lot more money with the cheap labor. It shouldn't be too hard to figure that out, right? Let's finish up right here a little bit on the housing market. So CNB says homeowners got $2 trillion richer during the first 3 months of the year. So compared to 1 year ago, $2 trillion increase in net worth total. When you look at all the homeowners, that's an average of about $33,400 per homeowner. So are they actually getting richer? Well, maybe if they sell their home and cash out, then they can realize their gains. But what's going to happen? They're going to pay a lot more for a new place to go to live, whether it's renting or if you buy a home. So you're really not getting anywhere unless you cash out and go move someplace that's a lot cheaper. All right, but here's the thing that I want to talk about. What good is it to have a home that's worth more if you're not selling? So I would agree to have my home valued at zero right now if I didn't have to pay any property taxes. I could say, hey, it's worth zero, and therefore I don't pay any taxes because it's not worth anything. I would agree to that. I would agree to my home being worth $0 today. Why? Because I don't plan on selling. If I did plan on selling, then it would be a different story. But if I did sell, I would probably move out of state to a lower priced area and not here in California. But that's just me. Let me know what you think about this manufacturing, the outsourcing of our apple juice, the lack of manufacturing, the rising prices, And are you one of these homeowners that feels a lot richer now? You let me know. Thanks everybody for being here. Stay well, keep stacking, stay prepared. Bye for now. Peace.